Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Vadarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvamanusandathami Bhagavat Gite Bhavadveshinim Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapadakramopanishadaihi Gayantiyam Samagaha Dhyanavasthita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yan Yoginaha Yasyantanna Vidusura Suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Our Hamaji used to sit right in that corner. She was the first, what shall I say, the Pradhana Shrota, main listener, Pradhana Shrota. And however her health was, she would try as much as possible to attend the class, attend the satsang, and wonderful person really, and so quiet, so humble, and sincere and devoted. We certainly miss her. What we are doing in these sessions is reviewing the chapters of the Bhagavad Gita one by one since many years. And since last year now we are in the 18th chapter of the Gita, last chapter of the Gita. 18th chapter has 78 verses, and therefore it will take several sessions to cover them. This is our second session of the 18th chapter. And what we do during this session is we select the verses. It is not possible for us to cover the entire, every year we do one chapter, only selected verses. So that you get an overview of the chapter, that we have the opportunity to discuss the main topics of the chapter without getting into several details which we can avoid. And that is the idea of these evening sessions. Now this year we are going into the second installment of the 18th chapter, and you have this printout with you for this, of the selected verses. We have repeated some of the verses which we have already done last year. The name of this chapter, the title is the Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. The 18th chapter is called Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. Yoga means the title or the topic. Moksha Sannyasa. There is some echo here. Moksha Sannyasa. Moksha means liberation, freedom, unconditional freedom. Each one of us loves freedom. That is the most beloved to us, freedom. And freedom is the same as happiness. We are happy when we feel free, and we feel free when we are happy. So really speaking, freedom and happiness go together. Sarvam parvasham dukkham, sarvam atmavasham sukham. There's a great sage whose name was Manu Smriti. Described the sukham and dukkham this way. What is sukham? What is dukkham? For he says, sarvam paravasham dukkham. Paravasham, where there is paravashata, where there is dependence. That is called dukkham. So what is dukkham? What is sorrow? Dependence is called sorrow. Sarvam atmavasham sukham. Atmavashata, where there is freedom or independence, there is happiness. So happiness is described as freedom, or freedom is when we feel happy. And usually our happiness comes at a cost. In order to enjoy something, we need some means of enjoyment. And we have to acquire that means of enjoyment. We have these 5 organs of perception, and so those objects of perception we require, or other kinds of objects of enjoyment we require, which we have to procure. Meaning that usually happiness comes at a price. Happiness, we become happy when the favorable conditions happen. When the things that I experience are likable, and my mind also is in mood, and all these conditions must be satisfied for us to become happy. Why am I saying this? Because it's quite likely that something that made me happy today may not make me happy tomorrow. Same beach that I enjoyed 6 months ago, I may not enjoy it today. Meaning that the happiness that comes from sources other than ourselves, which is the usual happiness we are familiar with, is what we call conditional happiness, as long as certain conditions are satisfied. When object is likable, desirable, my mind also is in a proper spirit or mood, when all these favorable conditions happen, then we have the experience of happiness. We have to settle for this. Not that we are satisfied with this happiness. That's all we know. And that's the reason why no experience of happiness can give us any lasting happiness. It cannot be lasting or abiding. It's fleeting. What we are seeking is an abiding, lasting happiness. And that can be only when the happiness is unconditional, not conditional. Can be only when it comes from not source other than myself. When happiness comes from source other than myself, then I have to satisfy the conditions, then only it can make me happy. Therefore, unconditional happiness can only happen when happiness is my own nature. Atma, self, is happiness. Therefore, Vedanta teaches us, Bhagavad Gita teaches, that to be able to abide in one's own self, my mind is always extrovert, looking for happiness out there. when those experiences of happiness are analyzed, we recognize their limitations. And then, with that understanding called viveka, we recognize that what is out there is limited and fleeting. And then we start looking for happiness within our own self. Of course, all of this presupposes a teacher, guidance and everything. And the happiness that comes from myself, I don't have to pay any price because it's myself. And that's what Vedanta teaches, that you are Brahman, you are happiness, you are limitless. And therefore, that knowledge gives me what I'm seeking in my life. Therefore, moksha is a result of recognition of my true nature. And that is true sannyasa, moksha sannyasa. Bhagavad Gita teaches us sannyasa. Sannyasa is a very familiar word, I'm sure all of you know. Sannyasa means renunciation. And now you know because you have a sannyasa in front of you. So you know sannyasa means wearing orange robes, giving all responsibility, doing nothing, no responsibilities. Sounds very attractive. So, sannyasa means renunciation. Renunciation of what? Ultimately, renunciation of anything that is an obstacle to my happiness, really speaking. Vedanta does not require us to renounce something that is desirable. Vedanta wants us to let go, renunciation, letting go of that which is the cause of my unhappiness, which is an obstacle to my happiness. When you recognize that, the renunciation therefore becomes then a means of happiness, because I am renouncing what is an obstacle to my happiness. The obstacles of happiness are out there. They are not out there. They are in here, within my own mind. And again Bhagavad Gita explains that our impulses of raga dveshas, attachments, aversions, the kama, krodha, lobha. So, krodha means anger, lobha means greed. These impulses are the obstacles to my happiness. When am I happy? When my mind is free from all the impulses, when there is no passion, there is no anger, there is no greed, when all impulses are quietened, then my mind becomes tranquil. When the mind becomes tranquil, then I am happy with my own self. Therefore, obstacles to happiness are not out there. Obstacles to happiness are within my own mind, because the self is of the nature of happiness. I am happy when I am with myself. My mind is the primary obstacle to letting me with myself. But when that mind becomes favorable, when all these obstacles go away, impulses go away, passions go away, ragadveshas go away, I enjoy the tranquility, I am with myself, and then I find myself happy. So that is what Bhagavad Gita teaches. What is renunciation? Renunciation is renunciation of the obstacles to happiness, which are these impulses, kama, lust, krodha, anger, lobha, greed, just letting them go. But Swamiji, I cannot let them go because it is, I must have told you the story of these two sadhus in Rishikesh in winter. They are standing on the bank of the Ganges and, shivering in cold. At that time they see a blanket floating in the Ganga. So one of the sadhus was very bold and he plunged into cold water and swam all the way there and caught hold of that blanket. And he started going along with blanket. So these friends thought, hey, you come away, you give up that blanket, give it up. He says, I don't give it up. It has gotten me, it has caught me. It was not a blanket. It was a Himalayan bear. And that fellow thought he was he was being caught. So that is how it is not that we have to give up something, all these kama krodhas have gotten us. Although normally we use the expression, I got angry. But I do not get angry, anger gets me. So this kama, the lust, anger, greed, these impulses, I don't have, they get me. Meaning that I do not have freedom to give them up. I have no freedom to give up anger. I wish if I had freedom, then nobody would want to get angry. But anger gets me, greed gets me, these impulses get me. So what do? There is a reason why these fellows get me. These are called demons, asuras. There is something in me because of which they get me. There is in me the sense of lack and want, etc., and therefore they get me. Therefore, Lord Krishna teaches a way of life or the right attitudes and values in life. When we entertain those attitudes, then this kama, krodha, etc. have no food. As long as we entertain them, provide them tea, coffee, breakfast, lunch, dinner, so long they will not go. So only when I stop feeding them, giving them, then they have no place here and they leave me. Meaning that I must create an atmosphere in my mind whereby these fellows leave me because I can't give them up. I am in their control when they leave me. That is why Lord Krishna teaches basic values and attitudes which when exist, these impulses have no place. They don't get sustained or supported. That's all karma yoga. Performing karma or the duty with yoga means with the attitude of being a contributor, being a devotee of the Lord. We will learn in this chapter itself, Svakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manava, worshipping Lord with one's own duty, one attains perfection. So this is the method that Lord Krishna teaches us. How to make our mind free from the influence of these impulses so that we become free of them. And as we become free, the mind becomes more and more tranquil, becomes more and more inward looking, more and more abiding in the self, and ultimately it abides in the self, knows the nature of self, and thus gets totally free from all pain and sorrow, becomes liberated. There was sannyasa, or renunciation of what? Renunciation of these impulses which are the obstacles to my happiness. Although we understand sannyasa as renunciation of all duties, maybe. But understand that giving up something in itself is not the end, it is a means to something else. Renunciation is not an end in itself. Renunciation is to give me the leisure. A time comes when a person gains the maturity to become free from all the worldly responsibilities. When he acquires the higher responsibility. It may look like the sannyasis are free and no responsibility. True. But that is when you take a little higher responsibility, a subtle responsibility of contemplation upon the self, pursuit of knowledge, abidance in knowledge. And that is the purpose of the sannyasa called karma sannyasa, renunciation of duties. But that is not the end, that's the means. The real sannyasa is when all the impulses have gone away, all ignorance has gone away, all obstacles have gone away, and you are abiding in yourself. That is the ultimate sannyasa, which is the moksha or abidance in self by the knowledge of the self. And so we may say that Lord Krishna teaches sannyasa in the Bhagavad Gita. Sannyasa or renunciation is the main topic of Bhagavad Gita. And why did that become main topic? Because Arjuna wanted to renounce. When Arjuna was confronted with this duty of fighting the battle again with his own kith and kin, he said to Lord Krishna, I don't want to fight the battle. Now in the Vedic times, you cannot drop out from your duty. The only way Arjuna can justify not fighting the battle is when he becomes a sannyasi. Although that may not be specifically stated here. But the only way that Arjuna can officially not fight the battle and give up his duty is when he becomes a sannyasi. Meaning that Arjuna proposed that I want to become sannyasi. Although he says, I will not fight the battle. What it means is that I want to enter into the next life, next stage of sannyasa where I don't have to fight battle. So you may say that the whole discussion or teaching began with sannyasa, which is what was in mind of Arjuna. And therefore Lord Krishna teaches what sannyasa is. Sannyasa is not just giving up duties and giving up responsibilities. Sannyasa is inner maturity. It is not that you give up something. Give up something when you are ready to give it up. It's like this, that if this person, fell down and suffered a fracture in the leg, and he needed what do you call it? The crutch. So when will you renounce this crutch? Oh, now I am ready, I am renouncing my crutch. You cannot renounce the crutch anytime you want. That can happen only when your leg becomes strong enough to take the weight of the body. Then alone you can renounce the crutch. So just giving up crutch is not renunciation. That giving up must take place at an appropriate time when you have gained that strength. So also karma is like the crutch. You cannot give them up unless you have gained the inner strength or inner maturity to let go. Because I'm sure all of us have experience of how it happens sometimes when you have nothing to do, when you are just left to ourselves, nothing to do, how restless we become. How difficult it is to be with ourselves, meaning that our own mind becomes a big obstacle to us. And Lord Krishna said in the 6th chapter, unless the mind has become mature, mind has become purified, as long as it is under control of these impulses, the mind becomes my enemy. Atmaiva hyatmano bandhu, atmaiva ripuratmana. Lord Krishna said in the 6th chapter that my mind itself can become my friend, it can become my enemy. So we have to make our mind friend first and then give up the crutch of the karma or the duty. Arjuna wanted to give the crutch right away. Lord Krishna, that is not the way to do things. You first grow in your maturity. So this is what the teaching has been going on. Lord Krishna has been teaching Arjuna the nature of sannyasa. And the Bhagavad Gita talks of sannyasa at 3 levels. The ultimate sannyasa is renunciation of ignorance and all the obstacles and abiding in knowledge. That's the ultimate sannyasa. That is called Vidvat sannyasa or sannyasa characterized by wisdom, by knowledge. As a means to that, how do you get that knowledge? When you go to a teacher, when you listen to this, the scriptures from the lips of the teacher, that's called Shravanam. Then you reflect upon what you understood, that's called Mananam. You assimilate what it is that you understand, it's called Nididhyasanam. This is how you acquire the knowledge. Atmavara drashtavya, shrotavya, mantavya, nididhyasitavya Maitreyi. Sri Yajnavalkya says this to his wife and disciple Maitreyi. Hey Maitreyi, Atmavara drashtavya, the Atma must be realized. How? Shrotavya must be listened to from the teacher. mantavya, reflected upon, nididhyasa, meditated upon. This is the means of gaining an abundance in knowledge. Now that requires total leisure. That is why scriptures allow you to give up your duties so that you can dedicate yourself to pursuit of knowledge. The middle level of sannyas. But even that is possible when? When you gain an inner maturity in terms of purification of mind. So when you first renounce ragadveshas, impulses, secondly you renounce your duties, thirdly you renounce all ignorance. Sannyasa is taught at 3 levels in the Bhagavad Gita. Moksha sannyasa yoga. So that is what Lord Krishna started discussing sannyasa. In fact, this chapter started with a question from Arjuna. Sannyasasya mahabaho tattvamiccha. Not question, but then a desire for knowledge. Oh Lord, I want to know what is the meaning of sannyasa, what is the meaning of tyaga or renunciation. And that's how Lord Krishna has been describing the various sannyasas, sattvic, rajas, tamas, etc. So what is the ultimate sannyasa? The first verse that we have printed here in this printout, the 17th verse, although we did discuss it last year, but we'll just quickly go through this verse also. Shri Bhagavan uvacha yasya naham krito bhavaha buddhir yasya lipyate hatvapi sa iman lokan nahanti na nibadhyate. Shri Bhagavan uvacha, the Lord said, Yasya naham krito bhavaha, he who has no feeling of egoism, buddhir yasya nalipyate, whose intellect is not tainted, hatvapi saiman lokan, even though killing all these people, nahanti na nibadhyate, he does not kill, he does not become bound. This is a huge statement, and this is what Lord Krishna primarily wants to teach Arjuna. Arjuna is afraid of performing this karma because karma will bind him. And therefore Lord Krishna says, Nahanti na nibadhyate. So Arjuna says, I will become the killer of these people. I will become a sinner. I will go to hell. I will suffer. I don't want to fight this battle. That was one of the problems Arjuna had. One problem was, because of fighting this battle, all these near and dear ones will be killed, and what will I do without them? That was emotional problem. And second problem was that I will be the agent of killing them. I will be their ghataka or killer, and I will be a sinner. I will have to go to hell. I don't want to do that. So these are the two primary problems that Arjuna had, which is what Lord Krishna addresses in the Bhagavad Gita. First is all these people will be killed. So death is the major issue here. And second is, I will be the killer. Second issue. So that is why this verse, which is like the summary of the entire teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, discusses both death as well as the killing. Now this is a major topic, and in Sanskrit there is a saying called the Prathama Malya Nyaya. You know that the one who wants to become the world heavyweight boxing champion, so the one who was the heavyweight boxing champion last year doesn't have to fight with every Tom, Dick and Harry. He has to fight only the first one. Meaning that the one who has defeated everybody else, he has to fight with him. That's called Prathama Malla Nyaya. I mean, you have to only fight with the primary Malla. Moksha. Similarly also, if you can understand the secret of death and secret of being killer, then you understand that nothing will bother you. Therefore, these two are addressed in this particular verse. Both Arjuna's complex that he will become a killer, and secondly, all these people will die. Now, this is what Krishna is teaching is something which is very, very esoteric, meaning which is something very serious and very subtle. Something for us to understand and keep that as a goal of life. Second line of the verse is Hatva apya saiman lokan. Even though killing all these people, that's not going to happen, but suppose Arjuna, you kill all these people. Nahanti na nibadyate. Then also you're not killing them and you're not bound by that. So even though killing, he does not kill. Can you imagine this? So this is what Bhagavad Gita teaches, secret of karma. Although karma yoga is an important topic of Bhagavad Gita, but real secret that Lord Krishna wants to teach is secret of karma, that he does not do even when he is doing. He does not do even when he is doing. So, I keep giving this example. Those who attended the talks in Ram Mandir also must have heard this example. I hate to repeat myself. But this example comes back to me again and again. And more we assimilate that example, more we will know what the basic teaching is. That is the example of an actor playing the role of a beggar on the stage. As far as the audience is concerned, this person is begging. He is a very good actor, therefore he begs very effectively. There are tears coming from his eyes and he sings songs, and then that creates that atmosphere of tragedy, and then that's how people will give him something. So here is a beg. As far as the spectators are concerned, what do they see? A person who is a beggar. They see a beggar. So from the standpoint of the audience, he is begging. But from his own standpoint, is he begging? He is in fact an actor, a very wealthy person. And as a Swami would say, by begging he is going to get wealthier. By this begging, he will become wealthier. So while outwardly he is begging, and tears streaming through his eyes, and very effectively he does his acting, but internally he knows that I am not the beggar. Internally he knows that I am a wealthy person. And therefore, from his own standpoint, he does not beg. You follow? He is begging from the standpoint of the onlookers, but not begging from his own standpoint. Begging and still not begging. You follow? Doing and still not doing. How do you say Swami is not begging? He appears to be begging. Yes, he does. But in his own mind, he is aware of his identity. He knows that I am a wealthy person, and therefore, from his own standpoint, he doesn't really beg. Just an acting. So also a wise person performs an acting. Outwardly appears to be doing things, but from his own standpoint, he does not do anything. This is what Lord Krishna wants to teach. That Atma, the self, is not only the privilege of a wise person, for all of us. I of the self, in fact, does not do anything. Everything gets done in the presence of the self. Just as electricity does not do anything, in presence of electricity, the fan rotates, the bulb glows, the heater becomes hot. All of these things happen in the presence of electricity. Similarly also in the presence of a wise person, presence of self, the Sense organs perform their functions, the eyes see, the ears hear, the hands work, the legs move. We see all of these organs performing action, therefore we take for granted that the Atma performs the action. Somebody must be doing something, somebody must be prompting the eyes to see, otherwise why should the eyes see? Somebody is prompting the ears to hear. So we just take for granted that there is an entity inside who is prompting the organs to perform their activities. But in reality, that entity called Atma or the consciousness is motionless, actionless, doing nothing. In his presence, all these sense organs perform their actions. Like in presence of electricity, the fan rotates. We have in our kutia there in Salisbury, although this year I did not see the doll, but there is a doll. And I show my guests, look at now the magic. I'm doing something, I'm sitting in my chair here. The doll is there in the window. So look, something will happen now, What happens? The doll starts, shaking its head. So they think Swami is performing some trick from here. You know what is happening? What is happening is that there is a small little solar panel behind on the other side of the doll which you cannot see. So when the sunlight falls from the window on that cell becomes charged and little electric current is produced and there are motors in there which start turning, and that's how the doll also starts moving. So who is prompting the doll to move? When the doll moves, then we feel that somebody must be responsible for the motion of the doll. Is it not so? But really, is there anybody responsible? No. Sunlight says, I don't do anything, the sun just shines. In the presence of sunlight, the battery gets charged. When the battery gets charged, these little motors start running. When they start running, then these hands and legs start moving. There's nobody who is moving anything, things just, in presence of sunlight, things just happen. Do you follow what I'm saying? Well, outwardly it looks like that the doll, hands are moving, legs are moving, head is moving. And therefore, there is somebody who prompts this doll to do that. There is nobody. In presence of sunlight, this just happens. That's an example. So also, here my hands are moving, legs are walking, speech is talking, eyes are seeing, ears are hearing, all these activities are taking place. Therefore, you take for granted that Atma is hearing, Atma is seeing, Atma is walking, Atma is talking. But Atma is just consciousness like the sunlight. Just as sunlight just shines and presence, these things happen, so also in presence of consciousness, everything happens. There is a secret that Lord Krishna wants to teach Arjuna. Hey Arjuna, you are consciousness. You are the very presence because of which everything takes place, and therefore there is no doership in you. Although when he shoots his arrow, looks like Arjuna is doing that. But when you analyze exactly who is shooting the arrow, well, the arms are doing that. But who is prompting the arms? The mind is doing that. Who is prompting the mind? The intellect is doing that. Who is prompting intellect? Atma is doing that. What is Atma doing? It's just there. Meaning that in presence of the consciousness, the intellect becomes active, the mind becomes active, sense organs become active, and activity takes place. If you know this secret about yourself, then really, in spite of doing, you are not doing, meaning that there is no doership in you, there is no doership in the sun. In that case, there is no guilt and hurt. The guilt is when I kill. But when I know that I don't, in that case, there is no killer there, and therefore, if Arjuna knows that there is no sense of guilt and hurt. So this is what Lord Krishna says, that Hatvapi Saiman Lokan Nahantina Nibadhyate. Instead of killing all these people, he does not kill. They don't get killed, and he does not kill. This is the great secret that Lord Krishna is teaching in the Bhagavad Gita throughout, and this is culmination of the teaching that Lord Krishna has imparted over all these chapters. Having said that, now then Lord Krishna wants to teach us now the anatomy of karma. What all brings about this activity, etc., what are the elements involved there? So Lord Krishna says, let me tell you now the nature of these three entities which are involved in performance of action. So next verse we have reproduced here, that is verse 19. There. Jnanam karma cha karta cha tridhaiva guna bhedatah प्रोच्यते गुणसंख्याने यथावच्छृणुतान्यपि ज्ञानम कर्म च कर्ता च ज्ञानम knowledge, karma action, karta the doer or the agent of action, jnanam knowledge, karma action, karta the performer of action, the agent of action or the doer. Lord Krishna says, let me tell you the nature of these three. According to the gunas, these gunas are three: sattva, rajas and tamas. Sattva is our mind. When it enjoys the sattva, then mind is tranquil, quiet, cheerful, contemplative. When the mind is an influence of rajas, then mind is very active, aggressive, desiring, greedy. When the mind is under the influence of tamas, then it is dull, inactive. Sattva, rajas and tamas. These three are the dispositions of which our personality is made. Each one of us is made of these three dispositions: sattva, rajas and tamas. The proportion keeps on varying, and therefore we display different kind of nature at different times. Sometimes I am a very agreeable person, and you know that I am very agreeable, very pleasant, very cheerful, very cooperative, very kind. Some other time you come to Swami, and then Swami, he was very kind that day. How come he is so aggressive, so angry? When the Rajogun takes over me, that's what happens. Sometimes you come and talk to Swami and he's dozing off when the tamas predominates. So sattva, rajas and tamas. We all go through this cycle. When you wake up in the morning, when you have had good sleep, then the mind is sattvic. That is the reason why in the morning we are told to perform prayers and meditation, etc., etc. As the sun then rises and then day goes, then the rajas grows. That is why we start becoming active. When the sun sets and tamoguna becomes predominant, then we go to sleep. Sattva, rajas and tamas. This is how our mind goes through these different moods or dispositions. And different people have different proportions of this. So, this is how here the analysis is carried out based on these three gunas: sattva, rajas and tamas. Knowledge divided as sattvic jnanam, rajas jnanam, tamasam jnanam. Karma, sattvic karma, rajas karma, tamas karma. Karta, Sattvic doer, Rajas doer, Tamas doer. So Lord Krishna, let me describe them to you. From this we can learn the lesson. What kind of karma am I performing? What kind of mind do I have? And what should I do? Because the whole idea is to make our personality sattvic. Then we slowly overcome the tamas, overcome the rajas, and then become predominantly sattvic person. Then we are happy and we are ready for knowledge. So we can understand, Lord Krishna is describing sattva rajas so that when you understand, when my mind is displaying certain attitudes, it is called tamas, some other attitudes called rajas, some other called sattva. So how should I get rid of tamas and rajas and make my mind predominant in sattva? So rajas and tamas are described as those we have to get rid of, and sattva is described as that which we have to cultivate. So Lord Krishna describes the now jnanam, the knowledge. Read the next verse, verse number 3. Sarvabhuteshu yenaikam bhavam avyayamikshate avibhaktam vibhakteshu tadjnanam viddhi sattvikam. Because sattvic jnanam, the real true knowledge, is when one sees the one in many. So this is what these scriptures are teaching, that what we perceive at the level of our sense organs is of course manyness, variety, diversity of names and form. This is what we see. And we take that to be real, that you are, what I see is you, that name and form, this name and form, this name and form, and we take this division or duality as real, and that's how we live our life. You are one entity possessing that name and form and quality, I'm other entity possessing this name and form and quality, thus each one of us is name, form, quality. And our life is based on this perception, this assumption. Vedanta, that's not right. Even though there is something different between you and I, there is something common also. Just as, I don't have it here, but then elsewhere we had all the various ornaments. This was in Ram Mandir. Anyway, but you have seen all the ornaments. So there is a bangle and there is earring and there is necklace and there is whatever. And they're all different from one standpoint in names and forms, but they are one from other standpoint, namely they are all gold. So we are all different from one standpoint. What's the standpoint? Our personality is different. Body is different. Mind is different. Intellect is different. Personality is different. In spite of that, there is something that is common or the same in all of us. Just as all these fluorescent lights and all these bulbs and all of these are glowing and they are all different from each other, and still there is one thing which is what? Electricity. There is common. So also in all of us, our personalities are all different. The person, the consciousness that enlivens that personality, that is one and non-dual. So the person that you are is the person that I am, and that is what we have to learn to see. It is true that organs of perception show me that personality. And with my mind I have to understand that in all these different personalities there is one person, one consciousness, one self, that is my own self. I am myself, manifesting through all these various personalities. Like a small little earring. Suppose it gets enlightened. What is enlightenment of earring, Or little nose ring, little thing. What's the enlightenment? When the nose ring realizes that I am gold. It is gold, is it not so? The nose ring is gold, earring is gold, bangle is gold, chain is gold. So what is enlightenment for the little nose ring? that I am gold. Then what does he see? He sees that I am the self of all. I am the self of the bangle. I am the self of the chain. I am the self of all the various ornaments. It sees itself in all the ornaments. When the little nosing sees itself as gold, then it sees itself in all of them. So when we see ourselves as one consciousness, then I realize that I am the self in all the beings. And then in that sense, you are not different from me, I am not different from you. Suppose that happened. Suppose I see you as myself, what will happen? When you are different from me and I am different from you, there is always a suspicion in my mind that this person, whether she likes me, does not like me, favorable to me, not favorable to me. There is always an apprehension in my mind as to what that person may do, and there is a basic, potential of fear also there, and therefore I am always apprehensive because I don't know how you are going to act, because you are different from me, I am different from you. If I knew that you are myself, no, but Swamiji, that person got angry at me. Who got angry at me? I got angry at myself. This would imagine that the subject also is one, the object also is one, and there is only one consciousness, one self, as the self of all of them. It is like watching my various reflections in number of mirrors, and each mirror is different, so each reflection is different. But I know it is myself. In that case, what is that I am totally free from any kind of apprehension or fear. And so when I recognize that even though your personality is different from my personality, the person that you are is the person that I am. That knowledge is called Sattvikam Jnana. That is to be seen in the buddhi, not in the eyes. The eyes don't see oneness. The sense organs do not see oneness. They only experience the diversity. But the intellect recognizes that diversity is one level. Like all ornaments are different from each other at one level, but that basically they are all gold, so also all the persons are different, the personalities are different, the person is the same. Avivaktam vivakteshu tajnanam viditatmananda. So that which is, there are all divisions, the undivided in the divisions, the one in many. This is one who sees this, recognizes this, is the person who enjoys sattvic jnana. So when my mind becomes purely sattvic, then this is what, it is not that this is what is revealed to me. When my mind is predominant rajas, then I only see the duality, diversity. So let us read the next verse also. Prusaktve tu yajnanam nana bhavan prusagvidhan vetti sarveshu bhuteshu tajnanam viddhi rajasam. One who sees differences, his mind is rajasic mind. So, but differences are there, yes. So the one whose gaze or whose drishti or whose sight is only limited to the costume. So each one of us is wearing a costume of this name and form, and the one that wears a costume, that person, is the same person wearing all the different costumes. So reality is that one person, one consciousness, one self, one Brahman alone is wearing all the various costumes. And one therefore recognizes the wearer of the costume as different from the costume, then he sees one in many. But one who does not recognize them. When I take this costume to be myself, I take that costume to be yourself, then I find that there are many Atmas. As many Atmas are there, as many embodiments are there. And therefore, the one who sees many in many, that knowledge is called the Rajasam Jnanam, or Jnanam characterized by Rajas. So this is how far we came last year. And so we'll take a break here this evening and continue from tomorrow the remaining verses. Om. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Before we